One of the most important skills in building culture, in fact, the most powerful tool for crafting and changing and transforming culture in any organization is the power of the story. And it's unfortunately, you know, I've got 2 master's degrees in hospital and business administration. I never took a class on how to tell a story, the single most important leadership skill of all. And one time I was talking with the CEO of American Media International, Art Bauer. At the time, they were the largest producer of corporate training videos in the world. And I'll never forget, we were talking about effective communication. And Art said, Joe, if you really want to reach an audience, you have to have sex with them.
All of them?
He went on to say, SEX, significant emotional experience. And the only way you create a significant emotional experience is with the power of stories. And our next speaker, who Laura's going to introduce, is going to tell us about that.
Yeah. Well, the interesting thing about Christoph is that he came to the United States from Germany as a foreign exchange student in high school. And his mom and his grandma thought that he would be here for a year. And then it was 2 years, and 3 years, and they wondered when he was coming home, and now it's been 7 years, and he's still here. And thank goodness. We are so happy that you've stayed, Christoph, and we would like to welcome the master storyteller to the stage.
Let's see, I got my little timer here, so I don't go over time. I didn't know I was going to be talking about sex today, but I'll go with it. First I want to start, we're going to talk about storytelling. And I want to quote Kelly Homewood. She's here somewhere. She was on Twitter, right there. Kelly used to be one of my bosses at the Gazette Company, and she tweeted, at Success She, be in charge of your story, right? And that's really what it's about. You want to be in charge of your story and share it. So I got 10 minutes. I only have like 7 minutes of stuff to talk about. So let's do an exercise, right? Turn to your neighbor. Hopefully you don't know your neighbor. If you know your neighbor, turn to the back. And share with that person a story. Something that has happened at work that you're proud of. If you're sitting next to your boss and you're not going to follow instructions, don't tell your boss what you think he or she wants to hear, right? Something you're proud of. So 30 seconds, each person, go ahead and talk. All right, great. Everybody done? People are still talking, right? Why are you still talking? We're trying to get back up here. Who has a good, this is one of my favorite exercises. And you know why? Because I don't see anybody in the room usually not smiling. Right? Everybody is sharing something. You're connecting with the person next to you. Now, how many of the stories that you've shared here, how many can I find somewhere else? After I leave here today, where else can I find them? Is there a place online? Somebody wrote a newspaper article about it? Anywhere. Anybody has, you don't have to share, but does anybody have a story that you shared that I can find somewhere else other than you verbally telling it to me? Right? One? Did you raise your hand to yes? One person, right? That's actually high. Usually it's like nobody. So what happens to a story when it's not shared? Who knows? It dies, right? It goes away. It doesn't make any difference how great of a story it is. You have to share it somewhere. You know, with the internet today, it's so easy to share stories, to blog about it, to do things like that. The Gazette Company, I used to work there a number of years ago. They have like a voice section now where they share stories about what they do as a company. That's a good start, right? It's one company. And the guys from the Gazette Company didn't raise their hand that any of their stories actually are published there, right? So, see what I mean? So it's not even there. So how do you get stories started? The hardest part is to get them started, right? Once something is in place, and it's a lot of work to change it. So for example, who can tell me why this podium is up here? Why is this podium right here? Has anybody used it other than Dr. Durham? Nobody, right? They took the podium and they moved it over here for her, and now it's here. Gabe's video will have this podium in there the rest of the day, right? Because it's here, right? This is like the status quo now. So the first thing you have to do, oh, that's a heavy podium. And I didn't even lift today. The first thing you have to do to get stories started, you have to make an effort, right? So I have to sit over there and say, why is that podium there? Who's going to use it? Do you think anybody will move it back today? Only if they really want to use it, right? You're not going to move it back just because you're going to be like, hey, we're missing a podium. It looks much better. With the podium right here, right? I can hold on to it. I don't fall off the stage. So you have to make an effort. The hardest, it's like working out. The hardest part is to get started, right? And then once you start, the hardest part is to stop. So if you saw me over there, the people sitting next to me, they may have been thinking I was checking email the whole time, right? But I was tweeting, Facebooking, sharing the things people were talking about. I pumped Chuck's book again on Twitter. I can't stop to share stuff, right? Once you get started, it's hard to stop. So how do you start? If you are a C-level executive in your organization, it starts with you. Your employees will never start sharing your story if you don't explicitly endorse it. You literally have to stand up here and say, I'm the CEO. You don't have to say it like that, right? But I am the CEO, and I want you to share our stories. And here's how we're going to do it. We can do it internally first to kind of get used to it. Then we're going to share things on a blog. We're going to do things on social media, wherever you want to, but it has to start with you. So if my CEO, I'll give you a quick story. I worked at the Gazette Company. I worked with Chuck Peters, still a mentor, advisor today. He's their CEO. And when I left the Gazette Company, people said to me, why'd you leave? Aren't you and Chuck like tight and you believe in everything he does and blah, 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 blah. And for the next 3 weeks, I had to explain why I left. So I finally blogged about it. At that point, I was reporting to the CEO at United Way here in Cedar Rapids. I didn't get it approved by her. I didn't show it to her, but I shared it everywhere, right? My reasons for leaving and coming to United Way. The next day, she comes into my office and says, I read your blog post. And I said, yes. Right? There was nothing in the blog post that could have been misconstrued as offensive or picking on Chuck or the Gazette Company or United Way or anybody. But there's still that, it's still hard to do. So the CEOs, C-level people in the room, you have to explicitly endorse it and encourage it. And the next step is you have to do it. So you have to share those stories and you have to give other people a voice to do it. Otherwise, it will never work. Because what happens is people share their stories on their own social media, right? And they share them verbally. So who thinks their company does not have a story out there in the public, in the community right now? Anybody? We all have our stories, right, about our companies. They're just not documented. They're just not written down. So, and then why do you want to do it? Some people say when we talk about blogging, right, you can get more customers, right? You always have a metric. You don't just do it because it's the goodwill of the community. Well, I would challenge you to think about it as part of the goodwill to the community. The other thing is it does help you as a business. The more you share, the more people you have that connect with you, that buy from you. Recruitment, right? So when I was out there, I took one of those pictures with those signs, right? I don't remember what it says, something about what's a good workplace. And I said one that's fun to go to, and I put hashtag MetTouch, where I work on my day job, and all the employees at MetTouch who are on social media retweeted it, shared it, liked it, talked about it. That helps recruitment, right? We're all endorsing them publicly. So think about how you're going to get started. If you're not the CEO, I hope you didn't tune out when I said this is about the CEOs. Talk to them about it. Share a link to this presentation with them. There's all kinds of articles out there of companies that have done this successfully, that have connected with people, that are sharing their story successfully, publicly, all the time. Thank you.
For one question. Does anyone have a question about this most important skill, storytelling?
You meant to ask who's got the first question, right?
Yeah, who's got the first question? So,
Right here.
Try to be helpful, right? So I travel a lot, and when we travel as a group, it takes longer to figure out where we're going to go eat, than actually eating there, because everybody has different tastes. So I was actually thinking about blogging about that, writing about it, without just saying, so-and-so is so hard to travel with because can't go eat. So talking about the different tastes and how do you work through things, and because there's people who travel all the time, right? So if you can offer tips, and if you can make it informational and you can share something, that's how you turn that around. Yep.
okay. Well, when I saw what you were going to talk about, telling your authentic story, I thought of the story that I always think of for authenticity. One of the greatest children's stories ever written, The Velveteen Rabbit, and it's about authenticity and becoming your real self. And so I hope you already have this, but now you have another copy of The Velveteen Rabbit.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Hey,
Thank you.
thank you so much.